Hello there, my name is Askan. This is C++ Part 3. Today we'll be talking about the compiler errors and some of the effective techniques of using C++. Now the first thing we have to know about compiler error, a constant T object cannot call a non-constant function. That's number one. Number two, a derived class with the same function name hides the base class functions with the same name, even though it is inherited public. If you comment out the derived class function name, it may work, but usually it does not work. An array name pointer cannot be incremented array plus plus because it is a constant pointer to the beginning of the array and constants cannot be modified. A virtual function cannot be a friend or a static function. Virtual functions have virtual tables and needs to be dynamic. You cannot initialize x inside a class unless it is a constant. You should return a pointer that is a static from a local function, otherwise you may get a dangling pointer out there. When a base class points to a derived class, it can only call those members of the derived class which are member functions of the base class and are virtual. Then number 8 is derived class constructor directly tries to initialize accessible member of the base class through an initializer list. This is not allowed. Call a base class constructor to initialize X. So we should be aware of that. Now there are some effective C++ techniques that we should know. You should know the difference between declaration, definition, and initialization. You should know the difference between a copy constructor, assignment operator, and initializer list. Now, one of the effective C++ techniques is use constant enums or inline functions than pound-defined macros. It's hard to debug pound-defined if they're in header files, cryptic message. More space are needed. If you have constant static in mynum4, it allocates space only once for mynum, and multiple allocations are there for pound define. Use inline functions or enums rather than macros. You don't have multiple evaluation like macros out there. In constructors, use initializer list to direct assignments in the constructor list in the same order out there. Polymorphic base classes should declare virtual destructors. If your base class has virtual, then most of the time it should declare a virtual destructor. Classes not designed to be base classes or not designed polymorphically should not have virtual destructors. Manually initialize built-in types because C++ only sometimes initializes them. In a constructor, prefer to use initialization list rather than assignments. List them in the order they were declared. Otherwise, you have an unknown bug or undeclared behavior. Avoid initialization problems across multiple translation units by replacing non-local static objects with local static objects. That's basically all I have for compilers and C++, effective C++. We might have more in the future, and as we add, I'll add to this list.